Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Bumblebee. So, Bumblebee is the best Transformers movie probably ever made. It's definitely the best live action Transformers movie made. It's probably better than the animated movie, but for argument's sake, it's basically what we're all considering to be the best Transformers movie of all time, if that's a thing that you want. What I'm going to talk about here, and what, basically a review or a thesis is I'm going to explain why it is the best Transformers movie. And I think one of the major things is because we're not in the era of comic book and sci-fi movies where you're kind of ashamed that it's a comic book or sci-fi property anymore. Even though, why are you ashamed? You're clearly using it to make lots of money and invest in heavily from your company and use this property and use its fans to make that money. So why are you being a little embarrassed and changing the whole iconography of it and all of the history and not really fully understanding the brand? But whatever, those days are over, and now we have the time of like Marvel movies and Aquaman and Into the Spider-Verse, where it's very much like loves the property and is a fan of the property. I would say Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies started that, where you had a director who was a fan of Spider-Man, grew up being a fan of Spider-Man, and it was like his destiny to direct the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies and that awesome dance in 3. See, internet's happy. So Bumblebee, directed by Travis Knight, you can tell he was a kid who grew up with Transformers. He cares about making a good Transformers movie. Like, he was aware of the property. He was like the right age for being into it. It seems, to be honest, I kept hearing he's a fan of it. Now that I'm shooting this review, I'm like, not 100% that's like a real quote. But he at least respects the property. Let's put it that way. And I think that is something that is a better fit, frankly, for a property like Transformers than what Michael Bay is doing. But also, I think it's a better fit for these kind of properties because the reason I was into Transformers as a kid. I played with Transformers. I had Transformers. I got into it again when I was in middle school, and my friend had tapes and tapes of the cartoons, and I got re-obsessed with the movies. So I loved those cartoons. And immediately when I first saw the first Michael Bay movie, I was completely turned off. And I wanted nothing to do with that franchise, even though I saw all of them and made reviews of them and have spent way too much energy talking about them and so forth. But other than that, it never felt like the Transformers I grew up with. And the opening of this movie immediately felt like I was watching a Transformers movie. And this is the first time I felt like that in 6 Transformers movies. I think the thing with Bumblebee gets the kind of innocence, the fun of Transformers. It also seems to do a lot of things that Transformers has always have a problem with, which is like making the human characters interesting. Like, I never liked the humans in Transformers stuff. I'm so shocked that they're like, let's like a bunch of movies where the human's the most important part. I was like, what? That is never what I wanted. And this goes more to the extreme of that, but obviously if you're going to do that, you have to write them better and write compelling characters. And I think with Haley Steinfeld, does a really great performance. She feels incredibly genuine and compelling, and she's someone who has an authenticity to her. Like, when she's playing like the smartest kid in the room, you believe it. You believe it because it feels like a very much a part of her. She has this authenticity to her. Like, when she really nails a role, if you see her in like Pitch Perfect, whatever the one she was in, I don't know, I forget, that didn't work. But like when you have her in stuff like, True Grit or this, or I haven't seen her in that many movies now that I'm thinking about it. I'm sorry, Into the Spider-Verse. When you're seeing her in those films, she's very genuine and it really works. And I think she's almost perfect. She's so good in that role, you have an attachment to her. I think she's able to make a really compelling character who you want to follow, and you want to discover Bumblebee with her. As well as, you have a great cast from her mom as Pamela Alden to John Cena, who actually has a great line like, we're going to trust these guys, they're called Decepticons, which was like which he nails and is really funny. Like, this is his, I guess, biggest movie star coming out, even though he's been in like other movies, but this is, a lot of people are going to see him in the Transformers movie, and I think he does a very good job. I can see why people have so much faith in him. What he's doing is they make a really compelling like teen coming of age drama that works within the kind of family movie setting. In America, we have GPG, PG-13, and R, and I honestly thought this film was PG like the whole time I was watching it, until like after I was like, oh, it's actually PG-13. Well, whatever. But it's a very soft PG-13. It very much feels like a very family safe kind of movie, but it's very good at it, which I haven't seen very many films do that in this kind of a film. Like, this isn't selling as much to a family audience the way, like, I guess you could say, like, Ralph Breaks the Internet or something. This isn't doing that, which I think is interesting that it sells so much on that, but since Bumblebee is so innocent, you want to do that. You can really actually see that Travis Knight's very good at, he was very good in Kubo the Two Strings, which is the only other film he's directed. He's produced almost every Leica film, I think, except for, like, Coraline. As a director, he's very good with visuals, and if you look at the visual style of Kubo and the Two Strings, it's got some incredibly striking visuals. So he knows how to frame a shot with visuals, and since also he's worked on stop motion, he can appreciate how long it takes to do some of those effects, so he's not going to whiz all around them and crap like Michael Bay does, and you can't really see what's going on at all, and like visually you just like can't really attach yourself to any sort of physical space. And in this film, with Bumblebee, you always have a sense of like, oh, well, this part goes here, and like you kind of physically understand what's going on, and they look like Transformers, and like they shoot it in a way that you can see what's going on at all times. The few times that you can't see what's going on is in a fight towards the end of the film, and it's chaotic, but it's chaotic because in the perspective of the film, a fight like that would be chaotic. When you do it 30 million times within a movie, it starts to kind of lose its effect because you've literally just kept pushing that note over and over again. It's so refreshing to see this like so plotted out. I mean, there's nothing about this film that in terms of like this movie going year and the history of film and things of that nature, this movie is not really that special. But in terms of Transformers, it is a godsend. It is amazing. And I actually think it is a really very good Hollywood movie, but it's very visually, I think, very well done. I think Travis Knight, he doesn't bring the flair he brings to animation. He often does what I think a lot of animation to live action directors, often they feel like they're two different people when they're switching between them. What Travis Knight does, I don't see as much visual sense. Obviously, he couldn't do as crazy stuff as Kubo and the Two Strings. He's very good at using the camera and clearly showing everything. Like, there's never a point where you don't know what's going on, which feels very refreshing in Transformers movie, where you understand the physical space, where you understand exactly what's going on at all times and where you are. And that felt like so different. Like, this felt like such a different change of pace. I really would just like him to do all the Transformers movies from now on. And I get this is a reboot. We're forgetting what happened in The Last Night, and Bumblebee was in World War II, I think, and like Harriet Tubman was helped out by Optimus Prime. They apparently got rid of that, which I don't really understand. I would see a movie about how Transformers did everything from King Arthur time to now, but you know, that would be a great series. I don't see why that's not on Netflix right now, but they chose not to do that and said, we get Bumblebee, I guess. So it's kind of like a soft reboot, but he doesn't have his voice anymore. Bumblebee is voiced by Dylan O'Brien at the beginning, and then he loses his voice box, so that way he's a Bumblebee we all remember. I don't like that because he becomes this kind of like cutesy robot throughout the like the Bumblebee character you've seen in the Michael Bay stuff, and I don't think that works as well when you see him being this awesome soldier. It'd be cool if like there's a way they got that awesome soldier to see how you could feasibly see him as the Bumblebee we see now, and like the personality change thing, and then he comes back and it's like character wise it doesn't really work. He's like, I think he works better when he's like the cutesy Bumblebee than like the soldier thing. It doesn't really connect as the same character. But I think overall this film's a very great family film. It's very good at doing the 80s, especially because they're doing like the Smiths, which is like something I never thought I'd hear the Smiths in a Transformers movie. I thought that's interesting. You made Haley Steinfeld a fan of the Smiths. It was like more cooler 80s stuff than kind of just lamer, stupid, normal 80s. It's definitely trying to sell its period. I think Never Gonna Give You Up was actually a big song at the time, so it's not like totally inappropriate. It's weird they picked 87 since like Transformers was sort of over in 87. You want to go a little earlier, like 83, something like that. I don't know. It chose to go 87, so I don't really understand why, but whatever. I loved hearing You Got the Touch. I actually clapped. It felt very much like respectful to the fans and the legacy of it. It felt good to see like actual like the full Transformers and feeling like they felt on the cartoons and things like that, seeing like an audience be really into it and actually understanding why they're into it. Before I was like, I don't know what you guys see in this thing, but now I really get it, to see a Transformers movie that I would want people to know I saw, you know, and didn't feel like an endurance test. Like, this felt like a really fun, good Hollywood film. It did remind me, I've heard a couple of critics mention Real Steel. That's a very good, fun family film, which also can do, you know, bigger issues and whatnot, but can do like kind of a good kid robot movie. And I think this is, I would show, if my daughter was into Transformers, I would try to show her this first, because this is like it's also shorter, but it's like a fun Transformers movie that everyone's going to have fun with. They do some kind of like very cool, like, Chaplin-esque things where Bumblebee comes into the house, kind of like much like E.T. This is like E.T. meets the Iron Giant, and like the plot of this film is very predictable and boring, but in certain places it gets you to believe in things that you saw them setting up like hours before, and you're like, I feel like that diving thing's gonna come back. I also feel like, she shouldn't leave Bumblebee here by himself. And then, it all becomes things. So it's not a surprising movie. I think sometimes people are getting a little crazy because then people have remarked on, like, the Rotten Tomatoes score on this movie is very high. I do think if this was a normal, like, out of the franchise's context, which is a stupid thing to bring up, I still think this film would be a very good Hollywood film. And it's probably one of the better kind of very mass marketable Hollywood films of this year, I'd say. It's not as good as Mission Impossible or Infinity War or Black Panther or a lot of other, or Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. But I think in terms of like it's made, how it was made and how it's structured and how it flows, it's just very easy to go down fine family Transformers film. And I think that's kind of what we always wanted this to be. Like, none of us hate Transformers, on concept. We hate them on those movies we had to sit through. And Bumblebee is just a nice family film that you sit back and relax and watch and go, okay, all right, yeah, I sort of know how this is going to turn out, but this is like kind of what I would like. And it would have been nice if this was how it started, but I think it didn't. And I think what Travis Knight did with it is show a lot of respect for the franchise, show a love of the franchise, show a love for the whole history of it, but also kind of understand like what you'd want to see out of a movie like this. Like, there's certain people who know how to just do a very structured, very kind of genre kind of film and are just very good at it. And for a guy who's coming onto this film, let's say he's basically a first-time director. This is the first time he's really directed in this medium. If you look at Travis Knight's filmography and what he's done, he's mainly just done animation. And this does require a lot of animation, which is probably also why he shoots it so well. He understands how to shoot these certain things and the respectful way to shoot these certain things and the smart way to shoot it if you're going to spend that much time on a visual. Especially someone from stop motion, definitely, trust me, understands that. But if you're able to kind of just nail a certain genre, even if it's been done a million times before, there's a certain art to that. And what Travis Knight does is he's become a very reliable, good studio director. And we don't have a lot of those because a lot of them are on tours and, they're doing bigger things and all that nonsense, and that's cool. But Travis Knight basically came out from Kubo and the Two Strings, was very uniquely, beautifully animated stop motion film, and made a very beautifully well done, perfect kind of little Hollywood blockbuster family film. And there's not a lot of people that can do that, but I think Travis Knight kind of nailed it on that. And that's what really makes this film work as well, is you have a really reliably sound director. It's like he like plotted out how to structure something like this and understood how to give it heart in the right places. And it works almost like a chef who knows how to make a really great cheeseburger. And that's what this is, but sometimes I just want a really great cheeseburger. And I think Bumblebee just delivers on that. And you get to like just sit back and enjoy sort of love of Transformers, which you thought was almost like something that Hollywood would never fully embrace. But maybe geek culture has finally won in that they've finally let us have the Transformers back, at least for now, and at least with Bumblebee. So if you've seen Bumblebee and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.